English language teaching. Under the covers.
Hello, welcome back to ELT Under the Covers Teaching Masters series. In this series, we look at notable educators that have influenced us and education in general. Today, we're looking at a teacher behind a teacher. We're looking at Anne Sullivan. But first, introductions. I'm Neil of Team Teacher.
Hello everybody, it's Professor Leach.
Now, Anne Sullivan was Helen Keller's teacher. And to get us all up to speed, let's have a watch of an introduction about Anne Sullivan, and we'll take it from there.
In this room sits a remarkable woman. She is Miss Helen Keller. She does not see the room or the book that she is reading. She sees nothing. She does not hear the rustling of the curtains behind her. She hears nothing. She is deaf and blind.
When I saw Helen Keller first, she was 6 years and 8 months old. She had been blind and deaf and mute since her 19th month as the result of an illness. She had no way of communicating with those around her except a few imitative signs that she had made for herself. A push meant go and a pull meant come and so on.
How do you teach someone that is deaf and blind? It's a tall task. Well, in 1887, a 21-year-old Anne Sullivan did just that. But how?
I mean, it's just so far outside of my zone of experience. You know, it's like
how do you even approach that?
Yeah, basically. I mean, it's almost an entirely different thing. I mean, there's a base similarity that we're educators, but things are going to be so different, surely.
Yeah, because I wanted to pose that question to you of how do you even start with that? Because you've got to think at that period of time as well. I believe Anne Sullivan was like one of the first pupils at her particular college that had was either deaf or blind. So the education around that was very new at the time. And then she goes on to educate someone of a similar ilk. And I was just thinking, well, if this person has restrictions on their input, you know, she's deaf and she's black. How do you do that? it's almost like a logistics problem before you even get into the education part of it.
I don't think I have a single activity or resource which is not visual or audio or a combination of the two. So basically, I don't have anything that's purely physical or even involves many physical elements at all. I did once see a teacher doing some sort of like meditation activity where like all the kids were sat down on the floor, like holding hands and doing something. I mean, I've personally never really done that, but you know, I guess that's the closest thing to, well, I don't know. It's the closest thing to that sphere of sense or that dimension of sense involved in a classroom. Mm-hmm. If it's the only dimension of sense you have, well, it's an entirely different thing, isn't it? You know, I mean, first of all, the initial challenge is communication with the student needs to be established. So really you're going to be like not just a teacher, but also a very specialist sort of therapist, really.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, you need to establish all kinds of communication and communication systems that, as she was just explained in the little video we watched, you know, pushing for yes and pulling for no or whatever it was, you know. That was
Helen's kind of way of trying to communicate. So why don't we have a look? Obviously it's very old, so we don't have any actual footage. There's very limited actual footage of Anne Sullivan, apart from these clips that I've shown just then, and we've got a little bit more later. So I've got a clip from one of the movies, Miracle Worker, because their story was turned into a theatre and play. So I've got some clips from there, and you can kind of get the idea of the process that she goes through. So why don't we have a look at that? So the water gushes over her hand, and she spelled the word water into the other.
When it says into the other, what does that mean?
Into the other hand. So on one hand, she's doing WATER. And that's what she's been doing for like months, just trying to spell or do signs within the hand every time she's picking up object or doing actions.
Are you using the audio from our commentary, by the way?
Yeah.
Right now? Or
Yeah.
You are? Okay. Yeah, no, I was... Hey, everybody.
And this was the big moment they always talk about in, the movies and the books and stuff like that. When she realized that everything has a label, has a name. And then she's going around touching things like babies. I love how they went with that example. Go touch a baby.
It's funny, you can see the way, I don't really know a lot about Helen Keller, but you can see the way she uses her hands, that like it's something that she's focused on a lot, because obviously it's a limitation that, there's not a lot of things she can focus on, right? With the lack of, let's say, call it distraction of visual and sound. But the way she uses her hand, it's like, you can tell there's kind of a very definite control there.
Mm-hmm.
Like more kind of precise and considered than, what do you say? I don't know, an able-sighted person.
What was always fascinating to me was it was kind of like Helen was locked in, but she was so desperately trying to communicate, and they make it out in the movies and the theater productions that it was just kind of like she had an epiphany, and the water gushed and they spelled the letters, and I'm like, and for me, I'm kind of like, well, how does she even know what these letters mean? But I think it must have been a process over a long period of time of just repeating, whenever she picks up something or does something, and then she probably they might have started with something more rudimentary like the pushing and the pulling, and then went to spelling words, or I know like there's different equivalents of like the way that you hold your hand can mean different things, kind of like I think it's like I think of it as like handwriting, like a shorter cursive way of doing rather than just spelling out all the words, But very interesting, and I think what speaks to me is that it's almost kind of foundational, the need for communication.
We'll both go for a drink at the same time. And I mean, what do we know about Anne Sullivan? Because I mean, I would be very interested to know what her characteristics are and what her kind of style of teaching was. I mean, as you indicated before, persistence must have been a real big deal.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the interesting thing about Helen Keller, as I said, I don't know a lot about her, but she seems to be someone who's kind of naturally quite full of joy, or that's how she was presented in the film. And when you see like actual footage of her, because I think that picture that we saw before was actual footage, right, at the start.
At the very start,
not,
that was
not
her,
when
yeah.
she was a little girl, but yeah. I mean, she seems like a very kind of cheery person. So I wonder if that sort of contributed to be able to overcome this really, crippling restriction on your sensory experience. That she was kind of she kind of exudes optimism as an individual, and they always seem to picture her smiling and stuff like that. So the combination of her as just the being kind of optimistic and the teacher's persistence enabled them to develop this system.
So Anne was she wasn't just deaf. She had sight problems, like tracheoma or something like that, if I remember correctly. But she was 21, and from what I really remember of reading of the book, she was very frustrated with Helen, and she had a lot of difficulties. And in other movies, like in that movie, she's quite gentle. In other movies, she's like she's shouting at Helen and stuff like that. But because she's 21. She's 21, partially sighted. It's down to her to teach. It must have been incredibly difficult and such a struggle. And at the point where Helen was acting out a lot, and I think that was probably again because she was frustrated as well. And I think the big turning point was when she did finally catch on, realize that everything has a name, that what Anne is trying to do is trying to show her and help her label her and label things around her and communicate. And after that, she changed more into the person that you're talking about. And Anne and Helen, they were lifelong friends. I think they lived together for until Anne passed away.
Sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, it's very interesting.
Yeah. I think it was. I think the thing with me of why I kind of wanted to put forth her as a teaching master was, once she decided to become an educator and she had Helen as her ward, it didn't seem like a choice that Helen would not learn. She would find it, Anne would find a way. And that persistence and that never giving up on the student, I think, is something that most teachers can feel. I'm sure we've all had students with their own difficulties where we start to take it personally that we want them to improve. And I think it's generally a mark of a dedicated educator. And and you never know, because sometimes you have students where you're like, this is very challenging for whatever reason. For me, it's more often behavioral challenges, and it's quite easy to give up, but you never know when that challenging student might be a Helen Keller. And Helen Keller obviously went on to being her teacher in her own right, and a social advocate, and being generally a very inspiring person for many people that have challenges. So I wanted to bring that up. But
yeah, it's that idea that that specifically that part of when someone's acting up and the frustration's coming out, you don't know what sort of gem might come out of that if only you can find a way to engage that student in education.
Yeah. Yeah. And with Helen Keller as well. So I think this is kind of more where we come in. So Helen Keller was deaf, blind, and mute. Now, Anne Sullivan was able to remove one of those things. Anne Sullivan helped Helen Keller to talk. How do you think she did that? You're a language teacher. Have I broken you? Sorry.
I mean, unless Helen at some stage made a noise kind of naturally without realizing it, and she built it up from that. So, excuse me a sec. So maybe she made an indication every time she would make a noise, kind of, just doing something. Maybe she just make a noise and then she goes, that's it, and then encourages her to build it up from there. If not that, then I can only assume that it involved like indicating parts of her body and mouth, trying to get her to respond to them, like trying to get her to make a noise by kind of indicating the chest and the mouth and stuff. And eventually she kind of, but I don't even know how you would do it. Or maybe if you kind of do, no, that's not going to work, is it? If someone's not speaking, how do you make them speak? You can't get inside someone's voice box, can you?
Well, you're not that far off, actually. Do you want to see? Because Anne and Helen, they demonstrate this.
That we did not use the hands when we were talking to each other. And I let her see, by putting her hand on my face, how we talked with our mouths.
Helen touches Annie's face.
She felt the vibration of the spoken word.
Jesus.
Instantly, she spelled, I want to talk with my mouth.
Helen smiles.
That seemed impossible. But after experimenting for a time, we found that placing her hand in this position,
she touches Helen's thumb.
The thumb resting on the throat, right at the larynx, the first finger on the lips, the second on the nose, we found that she could feel the vibration of spoken words. For instance, the throat, she feels the G, the hard G, G. And on the lips, she feels and the K sound, k. On the lips, she feels the D, and with the second finger on the nose, the nasal sound.
Can I just say, having the first experience of Helen Keller. Helen Keller is a genius.
Yeah.
She is a super intelligent woman. So intelligent. Like, to be able to, because I know that kind of thing is possible because, you study, if you study phonemics as part of linguistics, then you can look at sound waves and you can start to identify what sounds are being said without actually listening to the sound wave. You can actually see it. So you can see what a s looks like, you can see what b looks like, and you can start to get it. You can start to get it. But with like examples and training and explanation, it's still, difficult. It's still difficult. It's a lot to learn. To be able to do it just like that, I don't know how much she's simplifying it here. I mean, it couldn't have been like, instantly. It's
not just like a pouring water over the hand and writing. It's like I was trying to explain earlier. She said she was experimenting, so I presume that there was a process. Right. Probably took months, if not longer.
Yeah, but certainly it is possible, and it's phonemic based, and they do. These sounds all have unique features that you should be able to detect through a combination of vibrations, and exactly where she's putting their fingers is very interesting, isn't it? The throat, so she can feel the vibration. This is what we tell students to do to distinguish voiced and unvoiced sounds. It's put your hand on your throat, Uh, you can feel when there's a vibration, when there isn't. And of course, the mouth to get the mouth sounds. And the only thing she's missing there is the tongue, which does come into play with different sounds. I don't know if they ever did anything involving tongue.
I don't.
Could be a bit weird
We'll
to
see.
touch someone's tongue. But yeah.
Was the the.
Her hand rests on Annie's face.
The first word she learned to articulate was the little word it.
Her finger touches Annie's moving lips.
With the hand in this position, I made the vowel I. She felt it. I.
Helen repeats the letters after Annie.
Then I made the T. She feels it with the finger on her lips, on my lips. Then I put the two letters together to form the word it. And the first word was learned.
See, I'm seeing everything there. The only thing I'm not seeing is how she knew the tongue position for t, because everything else she can get.
Yeah.
Oh, she'll get the aspiration, the right?
Mm-hmm.
But how does she know that she's using the tongue here to do that?
Well,
They must have done tongue. They must have done tongue.
You-
Like they're not showing it here because it's a bit too, fingers on tongue, in a mouth, in a video. Maybe the person filming the documentary was like, oh no, it's okay, we won't do that. But if she'd have done that as well, then she'd have all the components you need, right? Because that's what you need: tongue position, mouth position, lips, so position of all the speech organs, and then the aspiration, and whether it's voiced or unvoiced, and then you've got everything.
well,
But incredible.
You'll see the results, and you'll probably you'll get when they say speak, it's quite rudimentary, but
Yeah, I imagine.
Yeah, but
It's like using a typewriter with one finger.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, yeah.
Annie grins sweetly.
After her seventh lesson, she was able to speak the sentence word by word. I am not dumb now.
Isn't that incredible, right?
It is incredible, and sorry to be an English teacher about this. She could have taught us some connected speech there, couldn't she? She could have done some weak form, because she said "I am not," but she
Yeah.
could have just taught us as "I'm not."
Yeah.
I mean, okay. Do what you can. Do what you can. But yeah.
Well, no,
I don't think I could have just to clear this up. I don't think I could have done a better job than Anne Sullivan. Okay, amazing. Yeah, it's incredible.
No, I can't stress this enough, and yeah, I feel like I didn't do a good enough job of setting context. But this was back in the early 1900s, might not have even been in the 1900s. I can't remember off the top of my head what this. Yeah,
I think it was the end of the 19th century, wasn't it? Start of 20th century.
Yeah,
It was like 1887 or something.
yeah. So this time, no schools for the deaf, blind, people that need that have challenges. None of that. Social stigma. Generally children that are born with challenges are kind of like, almost disregarded in a way, and then you have this young girl that's got her own problems, got her own issues, her own challenges. She's the first one going through this school, and then she's given Helen Keller as a student, and she didn't fail, but in fact she found a way to educate someone that was beyond her challenges with her own challenges, and take and not just do the basics, but take it to a level that I can't even fathom doing today. And I just
That's
I can't stress enough.
Yeah.
How and obviously Helen is a genius, and you needed someone like her to kind of have that curiosity, that drive to overcome.
Yeah.
But still, it's extraordinary.
It is extraordinary. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think we can really comprehend how extraordinary it is. It's not possible to imagine that you've sort of lived your whole life without kind of two almost fundamental. They are fundamental for almost all of us. The ability to hear and see are fundamental senses which make up a massive part of how we navigate the world, how we experience the world, how we experience thoughts, how we think about things, how we operate. To think that you just, if someone were to come along, to us now and say, oh, by the way, Neil and Rich, you're missing two senses which you didn't even know you had, and I'm going to try and explain to you what these things are, with the senses that you only currently have. It'd be like trying to explain to someone, the fourth dimension or the fifth dimension, which, if anyone reads about physics, it's incredibly difficult to understand those concepts. It's amazing, really. It's amazing. It is totally unimaginable to think what that could be like.
Yeah, and the more you think about it as well, the more you realize how tough, how difficult it is, because you instantly you just think, well, you have her, like listen to some. Oh no, you can't listen to me. You show her no. How do you even? And it's basically like it's unbelievable.
Yeah. Well, obviously, she would never learn exactly what those things were. But just the fact that you can communicate, they exist, and you don't experience them, and other people do, and that's kind of that, and yeah, it's amazing. It makes me think of Helen Keller as kind of an explorer in a way, but not an explorer of new lands, but an explorer of the sense and the perception that she had, and she wanted to discover this world that she didn't know existed but seemed inaccessible to her, and in fact always was inaccessible, but she was able to learn to kind of reach across that with her teacher.
Yeah, and I think I'm gonna wrap this up with what happens when you're a teacher and you don't give up on a student, because you never know what a student's going to contribute to the wider world. There's many times people get written off, especially those that have challenges, but then they go on to do great things. Sometimes they don't. But, that's not your job as an educator. Your job as an educator is to educate and persist and to keep going until, you educate. It's not very eloquent. But so Anne Sullivan comes in insurmountable challenge to help Helen Keller. Helen Keller becomes educated, becomes this inspiring figure, and then goes on herself to be an educator and an advocate for people with challenges, and starts to create more schools, and it just perpetuates, it snowballs, and it all started with Anne Sullivan just not giving up. I think that we will finish with a little clip of Helen Keller, a little bit older, going into a classroom and doing a little bit of teaching advocacy herself.
Okay.
The young students at Sydney's Deaf and Dumb Institute for artificially acquired monotone is interpreted by Miss Thompson for those children with partial or aided hearing.
Every step I'm on the road you are traveling. I know every step of the road you are taking. And I do the choices as you hear and to turn in as well. And I rejoice as you cheer.
This is really interesting because obviously it's got to the point where she's communicating here using a slightly different method than before, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because previously it was that specific, almost like the showpiece of, I'll show you that I can say this sentence pretty well.
Yeah.
Right. Whereas now she's gone to the more functional and, as a communicative language teacher, I can see this being more useful.
Mm-hmm.
That's why she's doing that with the interpreter, because that's like a million times quicker for her to use her kind of monotone communication rather than if she had to enunciate every word, just like, as we teach to our students in communicative language teaching, enunciating every word is not so good. And Helen Keller there has now got her own kind of monotonal system, which is far, far, far superior because she's able now to say entire phrases to in pretty much the same sort of speed that people who can see and aren't deaf can do. So yeah, I can definitely see this as being an evolution, although to begin with, you might look at it and go, well, what's happened there? It's like she's gone backwards. No. This is better.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, because it's the stream of thought. It's you've got to remember that she's communicating, and when before she was just demonstrating, that's like you say, it's a showpiece. This is it's just a means to get a message across.
Yeah. Which is, communication. Yeah.
Because the obstacles you meet are many. And when you go out to life's struggles and adventures, you will raise a banner. You will raise a banner who follow you. For the deaf who follow you.
So cool.
I know, right? And all starts with a relationship between a teacher and a student, and then Helen Keller goes on and becomes an inspiration for many others that are in a situation, and those people know that someone's gone down that road already, so it can be treaded, if not with difficulty sometimes, but there's a path. And it started with Anne Sullivan. I think she's kind of a bit of an unsung hero from that story. Do you have any final thoughts that you'd like to share?
I think that another message from this story, and I think it's probably been present in my comments throughout this video, is that it's amazing what a student and a teacher can do together. And I know that we went into this focusing on Anne Sullivan and her incredible persistence and also her incredible intelligence that would have been required to get to that point, as you say, this realization or this kind of critical moment when things transform for Helen Keller. That must have been just so incredibly difficult to get to that transformative point. It's almost like the bit where you have to convince someone that, for example, imagine trying to convince someone right now that there's actually another dimension and lots of people are kind of living in that dimension and they're experiencing the world in an entirely different way that you'll never know, but you can communicate with it. I mean, why would they even believe you? Why would Helen Keller believe, how would she come to believe that that there's something outside of this? It's incredible to think about. I also think that the collaboration between the two of them is really an important message here, that Helen Keller's kind of exploration, genius, and desire to discover and to expand her experience was a big part of it.
Mm-hmm.
And it would be really interesting to know when that kicked in and how much Anne Sullivan's persistence contributed to drawing that out of her to the point where it turned around. I mean, it is a really incredible story to think about when a teacher can do that with a student. And, thinking about it, I can't think of a time when, I've really come close to that. I can't think of a time where I've had a student who completely had turned their back on, or didn't even realize that they could possibly learn about something, for example, in my context, English language, and somehow I've managed to reach into them and draw something out incredible. It's very inspirational, and as you say, something for us all to consider, that you can teach. The ultimate message here is teachers are really important.
Yeah.
They're more important than football players, damn it.
Well, I think there's, I echo what you're saying. You can't work with a student that doesn't want to learn. It doesn't necessarily mean that they don't want to learn, but they might not. I think in Callan's case, they might not even know what they want. I think she was just frustrated and through persistence, she was shown an alternative, and once that happened, everything changed, and she realized and moved forward. But it was, I think, persistence and knowing. There's this quote from Steve Jobs where someone's like, these Apple buyers, they want this, and he says, no, they don't. He says, they don't know what they want until I tell them. And that's kind of what it reminds me of with Anne Sullivan. I experience it at times as well, where you have students that think they know what they want, but you know what they need. And I think that was the key to her persistence. She knew what Helen needed. I think Helen didn't have a lot of concepts about the world, as you mentioned as well. I'd like to finish this by saying, if you have any comments, please leave them below. Let us know your experiences and your thoughts about Anne Sullivan and Helen Keller, what you derived of Helen or Anne's teachings. And to leave you with one of my favorite quotes. It's actually from Helen Keller. And it's one of the quotes that actually got me into teaching through exploring the world. But the quote is, life is a daring adventure or nothing. And, it's a quote that I live my life by. And it's a quote that, got me to actually accidentally fall into teaching as I was going around on my adventures. And I think it's a good thing to keep in mind, to keep going forward, and to seek out new and novel experiences.
Yeah, that's really, what a fantastic quotation to end on, I think, Neil. Yeah.
All right. Bye-bye. If you're looking for more information from myself, you can go to teamteacherchina.com. We've got a whole bunch of materials, PowerPoints that you can use instantly in the classroom. We've got a Team Teacher China YouTube channel where we have videos teaching you how to use those materials. Team Teacher English, where we put those materials into a video form for self-study. And Team Teacher Baby, where I take my experience as a teacher and put that into parenting.
And go to youtube.com/Professor Rich to see some English teaching. You can catch me weekly live streams on Oxford Online English YouTube channel. Oh, and also you can do a YouTube search for POG Space UK, and you would get my alpha version of my new gaming channel, which actually just have some trial content on there at the moment. You can email us here at eltunderthecovers@gmail.com if you have anything you'd like to contribute to the show.
Smash that like button, share and subscribe.
And watch 100% of the video and don't click
Exactly.
off. Thank you.
Bye.